I transmigrated into the body of the second male lead, the one who helps the protagonist and dies alone. I planned to stay invisible, not to fall in love and try to survive if I could, since my fate in the story was to die. Until the male lead started watching me instead of avoiding me, and then I noticed the plot beginning to shift. I wake up choking on air that doesn't belong to me. It burns my lungs, sharp, cold, scented faintly with iron and pine, and my first thought is that I've died again. That this is what suffocation feels like when it finally finishes you. My fingers claw at silk sheets. Too soft. Too expensive. My eyes fly open. A high ceiling greets me. White marble veined with gold. Sunlight filters through half-drawn curtains, bathing the room in a warm, deceptive calm. I know this room. My heart stutters. No, I whisper hoarsely, voice unfamiliar, deeper, steadier, tinged with the authority of an alpha. No, no, no. I push myself upright. The movement is smooth, powerful. Too powerful. My body doesn't ache in the way my real one does. No bad knee. No lingering cough. My hands, when I raise them, are longer, broader, calloused in places I remember from reading. I stumble to the mirror. And there he is. Tall, lean, muscular. Dark hair falling just past my shoulders, usually tied with a ribbon in canon because it made him look gentle. Eyes the color of storm clouds, soft-spoken eyes, always kind, always watching someone else's happiness. I stare into the face I never wanted. You've got to be fucking kidding me. This is him. The second male lead. The man who never gets picked. The alpha who exists only to support the story's destined love, then quietly fade away. My name, his name, trembles to the surface of my mind uninvited, etched there so deeply it hurts. I press my palm to my chest. The heartbeat is strong. Alive. Too alive. I don't need confirmation. I already know where I am. This isn't just a novel I read obsessively. This is my comfort story. My heartbreak story. The one where I screamed at my screen and rewrote endings in my head until 3 a.m. because he deserved better. No. Now I am him. Memory crashes into me in violent waves. Not dreams. Not imagination. Canon. I see myself, him, standing in the rain, holding an umbrella too small for 2 people while the protagonist laughs beside the male lead under a larger one. I remember the way he smiles, always stepping half a pace back. I see the late-night medicine runs. The emotional support conversations. The blood-soaked battlefield where he pulls the protagonist to safety and takes a wound meant to raise the male lead's angst arc. I see the ending. A shallow grave. An off-screen death mentioned in passing. The gentle alpha who died young. My stomach drops. No, I say again, louder this time, bracing myself against the mirror. No, I refuse. I didn't come all this way just to die as narrative flavor. My scent, clean cedarwood and something faintly floral, fills the room as my emotions spike. Alpha pheromones. Canon described it as comforting, never overwhelming. Of course it did. I pinch the bridge of my nose and force myself to think rationally. Step 1. Confirm the timeline. I spot the desk. The papers stacked neatly. The invitation card resting on top, embossed with royal sigils. The Royal Academy Welcoming Banquet. Chapter 1 of the novel. The exact beginning of everything. My breath turns shaky. Which means he's alive. Which also means he will die. Later. Quietly. Unchosen. My reflection stares back at me, eyes wide with something dangerously close to panic. Okay, I whisper. Calm down. Think. I remember the rules of transmigration stories. Don't change the plot unless you have to. Avoid main characters. Stay invisible. That's literally what this body was made for. I sink onto the bed, fingers curling into the silk. A bitter laugh escapes me. You help him, I murmur to myself. You protect him. You guide him. And then you disappear. The protagonist, beautiful, tragic, fragile Omega royalty, will arrive today. Confused. Overwhelmed. Destined for the male lead. And me? I'm supposed to be kind. Understanding. Never desired. I swallow hard. Something cold settles in my chest, not heartbreak. Determination. I won't interfere, I say out loud, making it a vow. I won't fall in love. I won't step out of line. I remember how the second male lead looks at the protagonist in canon. Affectionate but restrained, like a hand hovering inches from a flame he knows he can't touch. I clench my jaw. I'll survive quietly. I'll live past the ending. And when the story finishes, I allow myself a small, dangerous hope. I'll leave. A knock sounds at the door. Chirp. Precise. Military rhythm. My spine goes rigid. That knock. I don't need to open the door to know who it is. The male lead. The future emperor. The undefeated general. The man fated to love the protagonist with a devotion that reshapes empires. He's early. In canon, he barges in without waiting, already radiating dominance and disinterest toward everyone else in the room. I stand slowly, smoothing the front of my robe, forcing my heartbeat to steady. Come in, I say. The door opens. And the world narrows. He's taller than I remember. Broad shoulders beneath a black uniform, metals glinting faintly. His hair is pulled back tight, sharp features carved with discipline and restrained violence. Golden eyes sweep the room with habitual control. And then land on me. Not past me. Not dismissive. On me. The look flickers. Just for half a second. But I catch it. Hesitation. Confusion. As if something in his chest stirs that isn't in the script. My breath catches. His gaze sharpens, assessing me the way he never does in canon this early. I can almost feel him seeing me, not as background, not as support, but as a presence. Are you well? He asks. The line is wrong. He's not supposed to ask. I nod stiffly. Just adjusting. His eyes linger. I tell myself it means nothing. Stories correct themselves, don't they? Then why does my skin prickle like I've just stepped onto a path that wasn't written? He turns slightly as if to leave, then stops. Looks back at me. Really looks. And hesitates. I make a mistake the morning after vowing to stay invisible. I wake up early, too early really, because my body is trained for responsibility. Gentle alphas don't sleep in. Gentle alphas rise before dawn, attend council sessions, prepare courtyards, organize guards, and quietly make the world run smoother for other people. That habit nearly ruins everything. By the time I remember myself, remember the future waiting patiently to kill me, I'm already dressed, already moving through the palace halls like I belong there. Like I always have. Servants bow. Knights greet me with familiar respect. Someone hands me a briefing tablet without even asking. My stomach twists. This body has lived a full life here. I can feel it in the way my feet know the stone paths, how my hands rest naturally behind my back, how everyone expects me to be kind, reliable, unassuming. The role fits far too easily. Stop, I murmur to myself under my breath as I walk. You're not here to make things easier. You're here to not die. Which means avoiding the protagonist. Canon is clear, proximity kills me. Every emotional beat I share with him makes it harder for the story to let me live. So when I hear laughter in the Eastern Garden, the soft, melodic sound that canon describes as the Omega who changes everything, I turn away. Deliberately. Painfully. The sound follows me for exactly 3 steps before fading behind a hedge. The story hiccups. I feel it, like a skipped heartbeat in the world. That garden scene is important. It's supposed to be where I give him reassurance. Where I tell him the palace isn't as cold as it looks. Where he looks at me with gratitude, and then later looks at him with love. Except I'm not there. I grip the stone railing hard enough that my knuckles ache. Good, I say quietly. Good. Let it feel empty. He doesn't need me. But the feeling doesn't go away. It follows me through breakfast. Through training grounds I walk past without stopping. Through meetings where I speak only when absolutely necessary, offering neutral statements devoid of warmth or personal investment. I become a ghost in my own scenes. By midday, whispers ripple through the corridors. Not loud enough to be scandal. Just confused. Did you notice he wasn't there? He usually stays with the Omega. Is he unwell? I keep my head down, reminding myself that this is the price of survival. Then the story does something else wrong. I'm called into a strategy review I shouldn't be part of. In canon, this is where the male lead leads, alone, decisive, unchallenged. I stand by the wall, silent, planning to exit as soon as protocol allows. He enters late. The room straightens instinctively. Power rolls off him in controlled waves. Alpha dominance refined by command and war. Everyone feels it. Even me. Especially me. His golden eyes sweep the room. They find me. I feel it again, that same unsettling hesitation from yesterday. Begin, he says curtly. The discussion starts. Maps shift. Probabilities are debated. Voices overlap. What do you think? The words cut through the room. Everyone goes still. I blink. I'm sorry. The male lead hasn't looked away from me. I asked what you think, he says again, slower. Intentional. About the eastern border. That's wrong. In canon, I don't speak in this scene. I don't exist here beyond a name on a roster. Heat crawls up my neck. I don't believe my opinion is required. One of the counselors chuckles awkwardly. You're too modest as always. The male lead's gaze sharpens. Answer. There's no aggression in it. That's what terrifies me. I hesitate, then give the safest response possible. Balanced. Impersonal. Something anyone could have said. He listens. Really listens. When I finish, the silence stretches. That aligns with my assessment, he finally says. Agreement. Public. The room exhales. My pulse spikes dangerously. After the meeting ends, I leave immediately. No lingering. No eye contact. No opportunities. I almost make it to the corridor. Walk with me. My steps falter. I don't turn. I don't want to see his expression. Your Highness, I have other obligations. Behind me, his presence closes in. Not crowding. Like gravity. You always do, he says. Then quietly, 5 minutes. Alpha instinct screams at me to comply. Transmigrator instinct screams louder. I turn. Up close, he smells like steel and burnt cedar. Controlled power. No overt pheromones, but enough to make my skin hum with awareness. I hate my body for reacting. Yes. I ask stiffly. He doesn't answer immediately. Instead, his gaze traces my face, eyes, mouth, the faint tension in my jaw I hadn't realized was there. You weren't in the gardens this morning, he says at last. My chest tightens. I had duties. You always do, he repeats. You still usually find time. The implication hangs heavy between us. I force my tone neutral. I won't be available as often. Why? Because I die. Because standing near you warps the narrative. Because you're not supposed to look at me like this. Personal reasons. He studies me like a puzzle piece that doesn't fit the box anymore. You've changed, he says. I manage a small smile. People do. Over the next few days, it gets worse. I avoid shared spaces. He finds me anyway. He asks my opinion during meals meant for political bonding between him and the protagonist. He waits an extra breath before leaving rooms I'm in. He walks slower so I fall into step beside him. Not touching. Never crossing a line. But close enough to burn. My chest is constantly tight now. Not with longing yet, but with dread. These are the warning signs. This is how stories start bending. I start taking longer routes through the palace. I decline invitations politely. Excessively. I begin attending meetings remotely. Still somehow, he shows up. At the training grounds one evening, I turn and nearly collide with him. Apologies, I begin. He doesn't move back. Have I done something to offend you? He asks. The question lands harder than expected. I search his face for irritation. For arrogance. For boredom. Instead, I find something unsettled. No, I say quickly. Of course not. Then why do you keep disappearing? The words are blunt. Honest. Dangerous. I take a step back. I'm merely trying to give appropriate space. For whom? He asks. The air feels suddenly thin. Everyone. That finally breaks something in his composure. He exhales sharply, runs a hand through his tied-back hair. That's not an answer. I should lie. I should deflect. I should say this was never meant to be about us. Instead, I say nothing. We stand there in the dimming light, the world holding its breath. Then he says softly, almost to himself, "Why do I feel like I know you?" The question hits me like a blade between the ribs. I stare at him, horror blooming cold and absolute in my chest. Because I feel it too. And in that moment I realize, the story isn't just changing. It's watching me back. If I had been smarter, I would have seen it coming. But canon danger scenes never announce themselves. They don't arrive with warning bells or dramatic music. They slip in quietly, disguised as routine, until blood is already on the ground. It happens in the late afternoon, under a sky too clear for violence. I'm supposed to be nowhere near the outer east corridor today. In canon, this is not my scene. This is the protagonist's second near-death moment, the one that deepens his bond with the male lead. The ambush that proves fate is circling them both. I know this because I read it. I love this story. So when the security report crosses my desk, minor disturbance, likely false alarm, I should have ignored it. I don't. That's the second mistake. Alpha instinct surges first. Assess, protect, stabilize. This body reacts before my mind finishes catching up. By the time I realize where I'm heading, my boots are already hitting the stone corridor. Stop, I mutter under my breath. Turn around. The air smells wrong. Too sharp. Too metallic. I freeze just as I reach the corridor's archway. Their voices. One familiar. One terrified. The protagonist. My heart slams against my ribs. In canon, I arrive after the male lead. Too late to matter. I help clean blood off the floor. I offer comfort words once everything is over. But this is too early. I step forward. The ambush unfolds in front of me with horrifying clarity. A shadow breaks from the pillar. A blade flashes, a narrow, poisoned dagger aimed straight for the Omega's exposed throat. Time fractures. My body moves before fear dictates otherwise. I shove him aside, harder than I intend, and the dagger sinks into me instead. Pain explodes. Not sharp. Not clean. It burns. Like fire threaded with ice, racing from my shoulder down my arm, seeping into bone and nerve. The world tilts. Someone screams. I don't realize it's me until my throat goes raw. The attacker retreats. By the time guards flood the corridor, he's gone. Canon enemy. Temporary. Unimportant. What matters is the blood pooling rapidly beneath my feet. I stagger once, twice. Strong hands catch me before I hit the ground. No, don't. I start, not sure what I'm trying to stop. The male lead is suddenly there. I didn't hear him arrive. His control snaps the instant he sees the blood. Move. The single word cracks like thunder. Guards scramble back instinctively. No one argues. He gathers me into his arms before I can protest, lifting me with alarming ease. My head lolls against his shoulder, my senses overwhelmed by his scent, burnt cedar, heat, fury barely leashed. This wasn't your assignment, someone dares to say. He snarls. An actual sound, low, feral, unrestrained. I didn't ask, he snaps. Where's the medic? I'm here. Now. I try to focus. You shouldn't, this scene isn't. His grip tightens imperceptibly, careful not to worsen the wound but firm enough that I know he's not setting me down. Don't, he says, voice shaking with something dangerously close to fear. Don't speak. Publicly. In front of everyone. He carries me through the palace like I matter more than decorum. Whispers ripple behind us, following like a living thing. Is that blood? He looks furious. Since when? The world fades in and out as pain pulls at my consciousness. I feel hands probing the wound, hear frantic orders, sense the male lead pacing the room like a trapped predator while healers work. Every time someone gets too close, his presence flares. Careful, he growls. I know, the medic snaps back. Unless you want him bleeding out faster. The words cut through the fog. bleeding out. I die young in this life. Panic claws at my chest. Not like this. Not here. I wasn't meant to protect him. This wasn't my role. I'm fine, I lie weakly. It missed anything vital. The male lead spins toward me so fast the room seems to shift. You don't get to tell me that, he says. The intensity in his eyes pins me in place. I've never seen him like this in canon. Never this raw. Never this close to losing control. The medic clears his throat awkwardly. The poison is slow-acting but manageable. He'll live. Silence. Then the male lead exhales. The sound shudders out of him, like he's been holding his breath since the corridor. He doesn't step away from the bed. Doesn't sit. Doesn't leave. The protagonist stands near the doorway, pale and shaken. He watches us with wide eyes, not grateful, not heartbroken, but confused. This isn't how it's supposed to look. You saved me, the protagonist whispers eventually. I manage a small smile. Someone had to. The male lead's gaze snaps to him. Guarded. Possessive. Leave, he says coldly. The room stills. Your Highness, the protagonist asks softly. I said leave, he repeats, never taking his eyes off me. That makes the silence roar. The Omega hesitates, wounded by something he can't name, then bows and exits. The ripple he leaves behind is wrong. Distorted. Rumors spread before nightfall. Servants whisper. Guards stare. Counselors trade looks heavy with implication. The male lead carried him. Did you see his eyes? He snarled at a duke. He hasn't left the room. When the pain subsides enough for clarity to sink in, dread follows. This wasn't supposed to bind us. In canon, this moment belongs to someone else. The male lead stands beside the bed as evening deepens into night, refusing the chair, refusing food. When I wake fully, he's still there. Watching. Protecting. Unmoving. You're hovering, I murmur. Good, he replies without hesitation. I swallow. You're not meant to be here. His jaw tightens. Neither were you in that corridor, he says quietly. Yet here we are. The implication settles heavy between us. I turn my gaze to the ceiling, heart pounding painfully slow. He reaches out, stops himself just before touching my hand. Then, deliberately, rests his fingers over mine. Steady. Panic blooms beneath the relief. Because this closeness has a price. And as the night deepens and he still doesn't leave, I remember. I die young in this life. And for the first time since waking up, I'm afraid he knows it too. I wake to the sound of voices arguing. Tense. Carefully restrained enough to not wake the wounded man in the bed. I don't open my eyes right away. I already know who one of them is. His presence hums through the room even in silence, a steady pressure at my side like gravity. You're overstepping, the protagonist says, voice tight. This isn't your place. The pause. When the male lead answers, his voice is calm. Too calm. He's bleeding because of you. Silence. Then, because of you, the Omega snaps back. This was my scene. My danger. My... Enough. One word. Absolute. The air shifts. I open my eyes slowly. The male lead notices immediately. He turns toward me as if pulled by instinct, tension melting into something naked and sharp when he sees I'm awake. You're awake, he says. He crosses the space between us in 3 strides and sits at the edge of the bed without asking. His hand cups my wrist gently, 2 fingers at my pulse like he needs proof I'm real. Still here. Still alive. I swallow. How long have you been at this? All night. The protagonist stiffens. Your Highness. Leave us, he says. The Omega's eyes flash. You already sent me away once. And I'm doing it again. Possessive. Unapologetic. Final. I try to intervene. You don't need to. The male lead squeezes my wrist, soft, grounding my... I do. The protagonist looks at me then. Really looks. Not as a rival, yet, but as something stranger. A question. You didn't choose this, did you? He asks quietly. I don't lie. No. That seems to hurt him more than denial would have. He nods once and turns to leave, shoulders tense, back straight. The door closes softly behind him. The room feels different without him. Heavier. The male lead doesn't release my wrist. Instead, his thumb brushes over my pulse in slow, absent strokes, as if committing it to memory. "You scared me," he says. The words are simple. The emotion behind them is not. "I knew the risk," I reply carefully. "No," he says sharply, eyes snapping up to mine. "You accepted the risk for someone who isn't yours." Something dark flickers behind his gaze. And I hate that. Heat crawls up my spine. I didn't belong there. You belonged with me. The statement lands like a brand. I stare at him. That's not how it's written. His jaw tightens. I don't care. The raw honesty in his voice steals my breath. He leans closer, forearm resting against the bed, body caging mine without actually touching, close enough that I can feel the warmth radiating off his skin. "Everyone thinks me cold," he murmurs. "Disciplined. Unshakable." His hand slides from my wrist to my palm, fingers threading slowly, deliberately. They forget what happens when control breaks. My pheromones stir involuntarily, cedar softens, warms, reaches. His eyes darken. "Don't," I whisper, fear and desire tangling painfully in my chest. "This isn't right." "For who?" he asks. "For you," I say. "For him." "For the story." He laughs softly. "There's no humor in it. I've lived inside other people's expectations my entire life," he says. "Empires. Bloodlines. Destinies." His thumb presses into my palm. "But when I thought you were going to die, none of it mattered." My heart stutters. "I don't want to steal," I say hoarsely. "You're not stealing," he replies. "I'm choosing." A knock interrupts us. The door opens before either of us can answer. Council members. Guards. The protagonist stands among them. The tension in the room spikes instantly. Their gazes flick from his hand entwined with mine to his body angled possessively toward the bed. Whispers spark. This time, he doesn't let go. "If you're here to discuss security," he says coolly, "you'll wait." "What about the Omega?" someone asks foolishly. "I'll handle him," he replies. Public. Final. The protagonist takes a step forward. "You're making a mistake." The male lead turns slowly, his body still shielding mine. "If fate made a mistake," he says evenly, eyes burning, "then I'll live with it." The room goes deadly silent. No one argues. No one dares. They withdraw one by one, leaving the damage hanging in the air. When the door closes, my breath rushes out. "You chose me," I murmur. "Yes." Just that. No hesitation. No doubt. My chest aches. "You realize this changes everything." "Good." He finally leans down then, forehead resting against mine, breath warm, steady, devastatingly close. "I won't touch you until you ask," he murmurs. "But don't mistake restraint for distance." His scent wraps around me like armor. Claiming. Protective. Terrifyingly tender. "I'm not letting the world take you from me." My heart slams against my ribs. Because I believe him. And because somewhere deep down, I know the story won't forgive us. I don't plan to love him. That's the lie I keep telling myself as days pass and my wound heals faster than expected, thanks to the male lead's insistence on the best healers, the rarest medicines, the kind of care that makes people whisper and watch far too closely. He doesn't touch me. Not once. That might be the cruelest restraint of all. He sits with me in quiet moments, reading reports aloud, pausing when I drift, resuming when I wake. Sometimes we talk. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes he simply watches me like he's memorizing a fragile miracle the world has already tried to take away. And in the silence, something dangerous grows. Affection. The sense of being chosen without having to perform for it. I catch myself relaxed around him. My shoulders no longer tense when he enters the room. My alpha instincts begin to answer his presence instead of recoiling from it. That alone terrifies me. Because I know how this ends. Canon death occurs on the northern mission. A collapse at the ravine. A heroic stand. My name recorded briefly, then swallowed by history. I read that chapter with tears in my eyes once, angry at how quiet my death was. Now I sharpen knives and memorize maps with the same calm certainty as people preparing a will. I don't tell him my plan. I tell myself that's kindness. I'm returning to duty tomorrow, I say one afternoon as he's standing by the window, watching the flags shift in the wind. He turns slowly. You're not cleared. It's minor now. You say that too easily. I've always been like this, I reply gently. His gaze softens. That's what scares me. He doesn't argue further, but he watches me more closely after that, as if he senses something slipping through his fingers. And maybe he does, because I start putting things back. I sit with the protagonist when opportunity allows, listening without stepping closer, encouraging from a distance, making sure the male lead's absence doesn't wound him more than necessary. I leave anonymous strategic notes on the male lead's desk, ideas I would have offered aloud once, but now give without credit. I make sure that when I go, the story still has something to stand on. And when the northern mission is announced, the one I know ends me, I volunteer. Publicly. The room stills. The male lead rises so fast his chair skids backward. No. I'm the best match, I say calmly. My scent stabilizes the rout teams. My experience. No, he repeats, voice cutting sharp. You're not going. The counsel hesitates. I meet his eyes. Pour everything unspoken into the look. Trust me. It's the hardest thing I've ever asked of him. He sees it, and his jaw tightens as he nods once. Fine, he says. Then I'm going too. My heart drops. That wasn't supposed to happen. The mission unfolds dangerously fast. Terrain instability. Saboteurs. Timing off by minutes. Cannon tries to correct itself violently. The ravine collapses exactly as it should. Except I'm not alone on the ledge this time. I shove him back as the ground gives way. Pain explodes again, but his arms are around me before I can fall fully. We hit stone together. Breathless. Blood and dust clog the air. I laugh weakly. I tried to do it right. He cradles my face with shaking hands. You tried to disappear. His eyes are wet. Terrified. Devastated. I was giving the ending back, I whisper. He presses his forehead to mine. I don't want it. My vision blurs. This is where I die, I admit softly. No, he says fiercely. This is where you live. He holds me tighter as chaos erupts above us, voice breaking as he whispers the words that shatter everything I believed about the story. I choose you, even if the world breaks. And for the first time, I want to stay. I don't die. That thought comes to me slowly, cautiously, like a creature testing unfamiliar ground. There is pain, sharp in places, dull in others, but it isn't the cold, distant fading I expected. It's the stubborn ache of a body that refuses to let go. I wake to warmth and low voices, to the steady rhythm of breathing that isn't only mine. I open my eyes. He's there. Of course he is. Seated close, one arm braced on the edge of the bed, the other tangled with my fingers as if he's afraid I'll vanish the moment he lets go. He looks exhausted, dark circles beneath his eyes, hair loosened from discipline, armor long since discarded. When he notices I'm awake, something in him cracks. You stayed, he whispers, almost disbelieving. So did you, I reply faintly. He exhales a broken laugh and presses his forehead to my hand. For a moment, the future emperor looks unbearably human. The healers later say the timeline shifted. They don't use that word, exactly, but they speak of anomalies, of survival probabilities defied, of stabilizing factors that shouldn't exist but do. They're baffled. The council is cautious. The world adjusts. Cannon tries to drag me under one last time. And fails. Days pass. Then weeks. I heal. Slowly, truly. The scar remains, a jagged reminder that I stood where I wasn't meant to, and lived. In the quiet after survival, something else happens. I stop flinching. I stop bracing for erasure. I let myself exist. He visits constantly, not as a guard, not as a ruler, but as someone who chooses my presence. We share soft mornings and long evenings. Sometimes we speak of strategy or politics. Sometimes we say nothing at all. Sometimes he rests his head against my shoulder, breathing me in like safety. I learn his small truths. That he noticed me long before all this, but believed the story already written. That he followed fate once and hated himself for it. That watching me almost die broke something open he never intends to close again. And in return, I tell him my own secret. Not the words transmigration, those would only confuse, but the truth underneath. I lived a life knowing how stories treat men like me, I say quietly one night. Always useful. Never chosen. He lifts his head, eyes intent. And now, I breathe. I'm learning how to choose myself. His hands frame my face with reverence. Good, he says softly. Because I've chosen you. The protagonist visits once. There is no anger this time. Only understanding, and relief that he is no longer being pulled into a role that never fit him either. You're better alive, he tells me with a small smile. I agree. The world moves on. Empires reshuffle. Futures realign. Stories rewrite themselves quietly, without fanfare. And one day, standing beside the man who refused destiny for me, it finally settles fully into my bones. I was never an error. I wasn't weak. I wasn't forgettable. I was simply never chosen. Until now. I lace my fingers with his as the sun rises over a future unbound, heart steady and full in a way I never thought possible. I wasn't the second male lead. I was the one the story refused to choose, until now. Love, I discover, is not loud once the world stops burning. It doesn't announce itself with destiny or declarations or crowns laid at someone's feet. It settles instead, quietly, persistently, into the cracks left behind by survival. After the ravine, after the doctors and the councils and the whispered terror of almost, life does not return to normal. It becomes something else entirely. Something we have to build with deliberate hands. The first stake is obvious, me. I am living proof of a broken narrative. A man who should be dead, a variable the world never calculated for. The court watches me with measured curiosity, as if waiting for reality to correct itself. As if some unseen hand might still reach down and erase me when no one is looking. But correction never comes. Instead, I remain. I gain weight slowly, muscle rebuilding where pain once lived. Scars fade but never disappear, thin pale lines mapping places fate once tried to claim. I stop rushing. Stop apologizing for existing. Stop stepping half a pace back. Loving him teaches me that. Because he does not love me quietly. He loves me like a man protecting a miracle he refuses to explain away. His presence in my life is constant but not suffocating. He does not cage me to keep me safe. He strengthens the walls around the world itself. Assassination attempts stop, not because danger disappears, but because consequences arrive faster. Political maneuvering sharpens. Enemies learn that touching me is no longer symbolic. It is fatal. That is another stake. Choosing me reshapes his reign before it even begins. There are factions who call his attachment a weakness. They say he bends too easily, that he has anchored himself emotionally where a ruler should remain untethered. Others whisper that I control him, that I am a seduction, a flaw dressed up as affection. None of them understand the truth. I am not his weakness. I am his grounding. Loving me makes him deliberate in ways the story never allowed. Makes him question wars instead of winning them by default. Makes him weigh casualties with a human cost instead of a numerical one. Empires grow nervous when unbeatable men learn restraint. Some allies leave. Some enemies turn cautious rather than cruel. Power rearranges itself subtly, dangerously. And through it all, we learn each other not as symbols but as men. We learn mornings. His habit of waking before the sun, even when he no longer has to. The way he checks my breathing without touching, as if afraid that contact itself might tempt the universe. The rare softness of his expressions when he believes no one is watching, and how quickly that softness becomes steel when someone enters the room. He learns my silences. learns that I withdraw when I feel the old instinct to make myself smaller. That I still flinch, not from him, never from him, but from moments where I expect the narrative to punish me for wanting more. He responds not with reassurance, but with constancy. He keeps choosing me without ceremony. The protagonist moves on to, freed from the gravity of a fate that was never fully his, he finds a life quieter than prophecy. We speak occasionally. Not as rivals, not as stolen destinies, but as two people who survived a story that tried to flatten us into roles. That is another stake. The world no longer revolves around a single romance. And the world doesn't collapse because of it. It expands. There are encounters we survive not with swords, but with trust. An assassination attempt halted because I am no longer unguarded. A border war delayed because he listens to my assessment and chooses diplomacy where canon demanded blood. A council vote that nearly strips him of future authority, until he stands firm, stakes his reign on the right to love openly, and dares the world to defy him. Some do. They lose. Others adapt. That is the truth no story ever printed clearly enough. Fate resists change, but power decides whether it holds. As for us, our love is not perfect. We argue privately. We retreat sometimes, collide at others. I still have days where I feel like an imposter wearing someone else's face, and nights where I dream of endings that never arrived. But he is there in all of it. Not fixing. Not commanding. Staying. And in staying, something inside me finally heals. I stop counting death flags. Stop waiting for disappearance. Stop measuring joy like a borrowed thing I'll have to return. I claim a future consciously. Every day I wake and choose to keep breathing in a life never meant for me. Maybe that's the final stake. No prophecy governs us now. No chapter dictates what comes next. We live with open endings, dangerous ones. Ones full of consequences and choice and love that must be protected instead of promised. And for the first time since I woke up in this borrowed body, that uncertainty doesn't terrify me. It feels like freedom. Because stories end. But lives don't. And mine was never supposed to begin at all.